We talked about seafloor spreading a little bit when we learned about the different types of plate boundaries, but before we move on, we're going to take a little time to review because seafloor spreading is one of the major pieces of evidence that some scientists have used to prove the theory of continental drift. So here we go, seafloor spreading. You can get your notebook and copy down these notes on the next blank page in your notebook so that you have them handy. And if you'd rather, you could get a piece of scratch paper and attach it to your unit packet. So, seafloor spreading. Seafloor spreading happens at divergent boundaries. We know that divergent boundaries divide. So we're going to draw arrows. They are dividing. We're going to write divergent. Divergent divide. That's the boundary that seafloor spreading happens at. Seafloor spreading just means that the seafloor moves apart, the ocean floor, the crust. Seafloor moves apart. And as it moves apart, it creates new oceanic crust. This happens because remember the plates are moving and they move a few centimeters each year. So we know that the plates move a few centimeters each year, and we know that divergent plates are dividing. They're going apart. So as they divide, there gets to be little cracks in the crust. And from those cracks, out of the mantle, the magma will rise up. It's like in the plate tectonics graph. It says seafloor spreading, magma rising, adding new rock to each side of the ridge. So the magma is going to rise up out of the seafloor, out of the mantle, and as it rises up, it's going to cool and harden. It cools and hardens. Well, then guess what? Then more magma comes up, and it rises up, and it cools and hardens. And as it cools and hardens, the green one's the new magma that came up, and the red is the old. And so what starts to happen is that some more magma is going to come up as it moves farther apart. This time our magma in my picture is purple. This one becomes purple. Purple is the closest. Then the green would be the next closest. And then the red one, that's our oldest seafloor. It's now the farthest away from the middle because a new crust is formed in the middle. New crust is in the middle. And the older crust is farther out here. and that would be on both sides because it spreads out in both directions. So the new crust is always in the middle, the older crust is out to each side. And that new crust that's in the middle, right here, this is forming at mid-ocean ridges. So the mid-ocean ridges is where all of this seafloor spreading is happening. So at those mid-ocean ridges, which are in the middle of the ocean, we get the new crust forming when the magma rises and cools, and then as it spreads out, it gets older and older and older. So what we get is, if this is a continent and this is a continent and here's the ridge, the newest crust is right here along the ridge, and the closer you get to the continents, the older the crust gets. And that's seafloor spreading. Now the last 2 pages in your packet will give you a little more information about it. So go ahead and move on, and you can finish your pool packet and get it approved.